Jesus Christ. Of course, when people ask me, what is it that you preach? Is it the three angels' messages? And I say, no, what I preach is Jesus, because Jesus is the good news. Jesus is the gospel. The gospel is not a theory, it is a person.
In one instance, an interview with an ex-Jesuit priest by the name of Alberto Rivera.
Especially I work in dealing with the infiltration of churches. The purpose is what the Roman Catholic system has all the time as her own purpose, is to infiltrate, to penetrate all the areas of life where the Roman Catholic can have control and access for the coming world government. What that means is, in preparation for that world government, the Roman Catholic institution, especially since the establishment of the Jesuit order in 1541, throughout all these 500 years, they've been in preparation and through infiltration and penetration of every level of society in order to take over the world politically and religiously. There are two doctrines that define very well these dangerous goals of the Roman Catholic institution. Two doctrines define this very well. One is called the doctrine of the apostolic succession, and that is dealing with the papacy. And the other is the doctrine, the temporal power, and that is dealing with world government. Of course, both, because you can see that even the Pope and his own individual office, he meet those requirements. He is not only the head of his church, as he called himself, John Paul II, the present Pope. He said he is the pastor of his church. He is not only that, but he is the head of his state, of his country. But that means he is the head of a political state. Both combinations are in one office. They are, in prophetically speaking, that is what we see in the book of Revelation.
Adventists should wake up. Time is short. What organizations have now been taken over by the Jesuit order and other institutes of Catholicism? What world powers are in her hands to be used in this final chess game for the takeover of the world? We can get some idea when we look back to the Council of Trent in the 1540s through the 1560s. At that time, and during those years, we find vows that were taken by these secret orders to take over the education of the Protestants, take over their schools, take over their churches, especially to destroy the Protestant Bible by creating many translations, destroy the monarchies of Europe, destroy nationalism, to use astronomy and astrology to create new calendars that would eventually transfer the sanctity from Sabbath or Saturday to Sunday. Their goal was to take over the business world, internationalism. They were to take over banking, to take over Judaism and the movement of Zionism, to create political strife and chaos and all of these things for one end, that Catholicism should rule. Listen.
Where I prepare Cursigistas, the Legion of Mary, the Blue Army, many of these militant organizations, I train and prepare how they can become Baptists, how they can become Adventists, how they can become Methodists, how they can become Presbyterian, how they can become Pentecostal, and all these areas where they must infiltrate any area. They need to control certain area of certain people, and this is where and how they'll be ready to have them under control through these organizations. The Opus Dei mainly, they move next to what they call Christian democracy. The so-called Christian democracy is an outgrowth of this Opus Dei. It's exactly, the words in Latin precisely define that. The Latin definition is, for Opus Dei, is the work of God. What that means, the Opus Dei. Opus meaning the work, and then you have how you call Dei, Opus Dei, the work of God. And you know the intention of the Council of Trent. The intention behind the Council of Trent was the Counter-Reformation. What was the intent of the Vatican Council II? Another Counter-Reformation, but called today, how you call it? Renewal. You see the point? Now, the change was a name, but the intentions were the same.
Yes.
See, more sophisticated today.
Yes.
You see, the Counter-Reformation was taken through the Council of Trent. That was the entire Counter-Reformation was performed by the Council of Trent, decrees. Then through that time until today, Vatican Council II came about with the idea of renewal. That means another step forward, and the final, I will say this is the final stage of a Counter-Reformation. The charismatic movement is serving the purpose, as we said, of one of the many issues. As we said about Saturdays and Sunday, they'll pick up every issue with different denominations. In the case of the charismatic movement, they pick up the charismatic movement because one factor. They could not bring under subjection the Pentecostal denominations.
They couldn't.
They could not. Even when they went through the ecumenical movement before, from 1945 down to our day, since this already starts. As a matter of fact, if you want to know, the World Council of Churches started by financed by the Jesuits in Europe in 1945, after the end of the Second World War already, or by the time that the World War was to end. Already the Jesuits were at work trying to unite all the Protestants in Europe. And that was the origin of the World Council of Churches and the ecumenical movement. Today the charismatic movement is serving that purpose. Where the Pentecostal could not be bring into the ecumenical forum, they brought it through the exercise of charismatic gift. Now these were two Jesuits that are starting already way back early, and before the 1600 already. Rivera and Alcázar were already commissioned to penetrate, since the infiltration was very difficult in the days through the Reformation. They can spot an infiltrator very easily in those days, because the struggle was face to face with the Vatican. Then Roman Catholics and the Inquisitors, they have a hard time trying to infiltrate the Christian churches, even in Spain, where it was underground completely. They have a hard, difficult time, and there was a very fearful thing to infiltrate. Then nevertheless, they did it. They did infiltrate, and this is how they find many Christians worshiping the Lord in underground places. Now, through infiltration.
Different approaches to present the Seventh-day Adventist Church to others. Okay, one approach is to just go by the name, Seventh Day, Sabbath, creation, human dignity, Seventh-day Adventist, the second coming, the blessed hope, and so forth, so on. That's one way. Another approach that we use to share who we are, our identity, message, and mission, is, for example, through the Reformation and the principles of the Reformation. Faith alone, Scripture alone, faith alone, grace alone, Christ alone. To God be all the glory. But we Seventh-day Adventists, we take the Reformation to its intended goal. So people fabricate. This is so bad.
I believe it was a video. You were in New Life Church in Africa.
Yes, I know, but I never say I don't preach the 300 message. Never.
Okay.
To just briefly talk to you about Jesus Christ. Of course, when people ask me, what is it that you preach? Is it the three angels' messages? And I say, no, what I preach is Jesus. Because Jesus is the good news. Jesus is the gospel. The gospel is not a theory, it is a person. That would be nonsense. That, so never, ever I do. But what I say is I preach Jesus to bring, and even Ellen White is so clear, we should preach the Sabbath, and everything about the three angels' message, but we should not, she say, forget the center of attraction, Jesus, you know. So this is what I meant. Because some people think that Adventism is just about telling other religions that they are the beast and so forth. And this is what I'm against.
But in these cases, they were not commissioned under the stream of an induction, as I was, under the stream of an induction. Rivera and Alcázar, they were to work, and then later Lacunza. There is more, but I will mention these three, the most important ones, in dealing with one special area, prophecy. They were assigned to deal especially with prophecy, with the purpose to do two things at least: to cover up any prophecy relate to the origin of the Antichrist, relate to the Antichrist, and relate to the papacy, relate to the Antichrist. And second, to cover up any idea that the Roman Catholic institution was never a Christian church, as I pointed out before. What that means is to make possible in Bible commentaries and church history that the Roman Catholic institution always will appear as a Christian church, fall in apostasy, and then we need a renewal, That was the idea that Rivera, Alcázar, and Lacunza tried to trace. Among other things, they tried to implement the idea that most of the prophecies of the book of Revelations were already fulfilled by the time of Nero. What that means is that don't worry about prophecies today, don't worry about the Antichrist, don't worry about a one-world government, don't worry about nothing like that. The Jesuit order will have a list made up in United States of people as well as institutions that are worth trusting. As a matter of fact, that I have with me a list of cults where he lists the most dangerous cults, and all who in the list of his most dangerous cults are Christian Science, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, starting with the Mormons. And suddenly I was expecting that he will place at the top of the most dangerous cult Roman Catholicism, but were the Mormons. Well, what I know is this, that even the Seventh-day Adventist denomination has been placed under the greatest setup and a real setup of all the history of the denomination. And the proof and evidence is that now the leadership is already in a position where they themselves cannot play the role of Frankenstein no longer, because they're being unveiled, they're being discovered, and their intents and their true intents, in cases where already most of them has been already trained, prepared by Jesuits to be where they are.
So, will this Sunday issue seems to be on the president's desk to be signed? The moral majority is pushing for it. The Lawyers' Day Alliance has pushed for it from its inception. That was one of the reasons it was created.
Yes.
So in other words, you think that for example, the Adventist leadership are going to fold up?
No, that is not true. No. In how the denomination has been set up and their keeping of the Sabbath is this. The Roman Catholic institution already, and this is why you had Biacochi and some other elements within the denomination, there already has been even honor, and condecorated by the Vatican concerning their work. And actually, the Roman Catholic institution is preparing the greatest surprise of them all, because it's not going to be even Sunday that they are going to be after. It's going to be Saturday, and you will see why. The reason of this is when already Catholicism already came about with the idea during the Vatican Council II that a Roman Catholic Mass that was only to be performed on Sundays as to be the only valid Mass for Roman Catholic. Even if they go any other day, Saturday, Friday, there was no valid a Mass for their obligations. Now, during the Vatican Council, the second session,